move no one predicted, the UK Supreme Court has just detonated a political bombshell, handing down a ruling that has triggered a chain reaction so severe it may end Keir Starmer's grip on power forever. Just 1 minute ago, a final verdict struck like lightning across the political landscape, sending shockwaves through Parliament, igniting fury online and throwing the entire Labour Party into a full-blown crisis. What was supposed to be Starmer's triumphant path to Downing Street has suddenly become a moral battlefield. In this courtroom confrontation, tradition clashed with tyranny, the law stood against political gamesmanship, and the verdict? Devastating. A scandal long kept in the shadows has exploded into daylight. Now Starmer is staring down the barrel of history, abandoned by allies, humiliated by judges, and, according to insiders, pressured to resign. This isn't just a legal loss, this is political annihilation. Britain is watching, horrified. Democracy is holding its breath. And behind the silence, a deeper truth is rising. The system is cracking, and someone must pay the price. It began quietly, like all betrayals do. A sealed case, a confidential ruling request, a challenge buried in legal jargon. But when the UK Supreme Court agreed to hear the motion against Keir Starmer's use of executive overreach to override parliamentary process, something snapped beneath the surface of British democracy. For months, questions had been whispered. Was Starmer abusing legal loopholes to push through controversial legislation? Had he deliberately bypassed MPS to enforce party rule? And most damning, was the Prime Minister in waiting behaving more like a monarch than a minister? For weeks, Starmer's office dismissed the allegations as technicalities. But behind closed doors, panic was already spreading. According to senior sources, several justices had grown increasingly alarmed at the Labour leader's pattern of conduct. The charge, undermining the constitutional balance between Parliament and the judiciary at stake, nothing less than the future of British checks and balances. And now it's too late to contain the fallout. Because in a stunning ruling delivered this morning, the Supreme Court has declared Starmer's manoeuvres unlawful. Not questionable, not unorthodox, unlawful. The language of the judgment was surgical, precise, and merciless. A fundamental breach of democratic principle. A calculated circumvention of parliamentary sovereignty. These are not phrases spoken lightly in the highest court of the land. They are warnings, and they have landed like thunder inside Labour HQ. Within minutes of the announcement, government aides were seen scrambling from offices, phones ringing off the hook. Internal messages leaked online showed pure disarray. This could be it. He's finished. Total collapse incoming. Social media erupted. Number one within 15 minutes. Prominent legal analysts called it the most consequential judicial ruling since Brexit. But it wasn't just legal circles reacting, it was the people. Piers Morgan called it a legal KO. Nigel Farage declared justice has prevailed. Even some centre-left voices, long loyal to Starmer, were shaken. The ruling wasn't just a legal blow, it was a moral indictment, and yet the Prime Minister remained silent. No apology, no press conference, no statement from Number 10, only silence, but that silence is deafening. It's the sound of political collapse unfolding in real time. As the minutes tick by, pressure is mounting. Already, 3 shadow cabinet members have reportedly offered their resignations, demanding Starmer accept responsibility and step down. The Liberal Democrats have called for an emergency general election, and inside the Conservative camp, celebration has already begun. They know what this means. Starmer, the man once seen as Labour's saviour, is bleeding politically, and the wolves are circling. But behind this public drama lies something darker. According to insiders, Starmer's downfall may not be isolated. Sources suggest senior members of his legal advisory team may also face scrutiny. Possibly even prosecution, for aiding in the procedural deception. If true, this scandal could widen into a full-blown political purge. The British public hasn't just witnessed a ruling, they've witnessed the ignition of a reckoning. And at the centre of it all, one man stands exposed. A man who promised to restore integrity after the chaos of Johnson and the collapse of Truss. A man who vowed to put the country before party. A man who now finds himself judged by the very system he swore to uphold. This is no longer a matter of party politics. It's a battle for the soul of British democracy. The courts have spoken, the people are rising, and the Prime Minister's chair has never looked more unstable. But what happens when power collapses faster than it can be transferred? Who steps in when trust is shattered? And just how far will the system go to protect its image, even if it means sacrificing its star? As the echoes of the Supreme Court ruling reverberated across Westminster, something far more sinister began to unfold behind the scenes. This wasn't just the crumbling of a political facade, it was the eruption of a hidden war, a battle that had been simmering in the shadows of British power for months. Because while the public reeled from the legal devastation, Starmer wasn't retreating, he was regrouping. And the first move came just hours after the ruling, during a secret meeting that would stun even his closest allies. Sources confirm that Starmer held an emergency gathering with his inner circle in a secure location, far from Parliament, far from Downing Street. No aides, no cameras, just a handful of loyalists, huddled in crisis. What was discussed has not been officially disclosed, but leaks suggest something chilling. Starmer had no intention of resigning. In fact, he planned to fight back with everything he had. A leaked transcript, reportedly from someone present in the room, revealed his words, "They think I'm finished. I've waited too long to be pushed out by a few judges. This country needs order, not chaos. And if that means breaking a few rules to keep it together, so be it." Those words, breaking a few rules, have now become the centrepiece of a new firestorm. Because if the court's ruling wasn't enough to shake confidence in Starmer's leadership, this defiant, almost authoritarian response has done the rest. Within hours, senior members of Labour's legal team began distancing themselves, issuing vague public statements about respecting the rule of law and avoiding further constitutional strain. But it was too late. The damage was done. And then something historic happened. Something that hasn't occurred since the darkest days of the 1970s political crisis. A message was sent from Buckingham Palace to Parliament. Not public, not ceremonial, private, direct, and deadly serious. According to high-level sources, King Charles has expressed deep concern over the constitutional implications of the court's decision and Starmer's response to it. Royal aides have confirmed that a high-level briefing took place at the palace late last night, attended by senior courtiers, legal advisors, and a representative from the Cabinet Office. It is now understood that the King, in a rare assertion of moral authority, is closely monitoring the situation and expects immediate steps to restore constitutional integrity. In plain language, the Crown is watching and patience is running thin. This level of royal scrutiny is unprecedented in the modern era. The monarch does not interfere in politics until now. For the King to even suggest that something must be done is a constitutional earthquake, and it has sent terror surging through the corridors of Labour power. Suddenly, Starmer isn't just facing legal collapse, he's facing historical judgment. The monarchy, the courts, the public, even his own party, all aligned in silent outrage, all circling, all waiting for the moment to strike. But Starmer, he's not leaving quietly. Last night, under cover of darkness, his team circulated a confidential legal appeal to delay the implementation of the court's ruling. They are arguing astonishingly that the Supreme Court has overstepped its interpretive boundaries and that a democratic mandate should override procedural legality. In simpler terms, they are trying to frame the court's decision as anti-democratic. It's a bold, dangerous narrative, and it is already exploding across media platforms. Loyalist commentators are framing the court as an unelected elite trying to reverse the will of the people. They're trying to turn the judiciary into the villain while portraying Starmer as the embattled hero of democracy. But the public isn't buying it. Polls released just moments ago show a dramatic collapse in Labour's approval ratings. 67% of voters now believe Starmer should resign immediately. Even more shocking, over half of Labour supporters agree. And yet the Labour leadership refuses to blink, as constitutional scholars warn of a full-scale legitimacy crisis. Whispers have begun in Westminster of something not seen in generations. A cross-party coalition to force Starmer out. Yes, you heard that right. Tories, Lib Dems, even Greens and SNP figures talking privately about invoking an emergency vote of no confidence, not against a sitting Prime Minister, but against a Prime Minister in waiting whose conduct has now rendered him, in the words of one Member of Parliament, too dangerous to lead. This is uncharted territory. Britain is watching a man fall, but not by election, not by scandal, by the weight of the very constitution he tried to bend. And now, just when Britain thought the crisis couldn't go deeper, darker, or more dangerous, the scandal surrounding Keir Starmer has taken a sudden and terrifying turn. What began as a courtroom clash has morphed into something far more volatile, something bordering on the unthinkable. Because as of this morning, sources confirm that MI5 has been officially briefed. Not just about the political fallout, but about a potential breach of national security. A dossier recently uncovered by a whistleblower within Starmer's legal advisory circle has reportedly triggered alarms at the highest levels of the British intelligence community. It contains communications, transcripts, and private meeting summaries that suggest a coordinated attempt. Not merely to override legal checks, but to suppress key judicial actors and manipulate internal parliamentary mechanisms to enforce what one analyst has now called a parallel executive authority. In plain terms, a power grab, silent, strategic, and nearly successful. Among the most explosive revelations in the leaked documents is the existence of a covert legal unit operating within the Labour Party, a small group of legal strategists who allegedly coordinated with select members of Parliament and civil service insiders to reword draft legislation in ways that obscured constitutional violations. These weren't just accidental oversights. These were deliberate edits, redacted provisions, hidden clauses designed to centralise power and bypass the will of elected MPs. These findings, now reportedly in the hands of intelligence officials, are not just embarrassing, they are potentially criminal. If confirmed, they point to a systematic effort to alter the machinery of British democracy, not through open debate, but through covert manipulation. ME5's involvement is not symbolic, it is grave. And it changes everything because it means the threat is no longer just legal or political, it is structural. And in the face of that threat, even Starmer's most loyal defenders are vanishing. Just this morning, 4 more shadow cabinet members resigned in protest, with one declaring publicly, "We were misled." This was not about service to the nation. This was about control. Labour HQ is now a fortress under siege, doors locked, a press barred. Security ramped up, and according to a growing number of insiders, the party is on the verge of implosion. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party is wasting no time. A motion for an emergency parliamentary hearing has already been tabled, calling for a formal investigation not just into Starmer, but into the entire upper echelon of his advisory council. The goal? To determine whether laws were broken, whether national interests were compromised, and whether the leader of the opposition, once seen as the saviour after Brexit and Boris, should now face permanent expulsion from political office. The public is watching with white-hot intensity. Protests have erupted outside Parliament, some in defence of Starmer chanting democracy under attack, but far more are demanding accountability, holding signs with slogans like "No one above the law" and "Is this still Britain?" The atmosphere is electric with distrust. The people feel betrayed, not just by one man, but by a system that allowed this to happen without warning. And now, under the suffocating weight of public outrage, MPs from both sides of the aisle are calling for what was once unthinkable: intervention from the monarchy itself. Yes, you read that correctly. Senior politicians are openly suggesting that the king may need to exercise his reserve powers, a rare constitutional mechanism that allows the monarch to dissolve parliament or appoint a caretaker government in the face of systemic collapse. It has not been invoked in modern British history, but this is not modern business as usual. This is a democratic breakdown. And time is running out. Every hour that passes without resolution deepens the void at the heart of British leadership. And still, Keir Starmer has not resigned. This morning, he appeared for the first time since the ruling, stone-faced, flanked by lawyers refusing to answer questions. A single statement was read: "We remain committed to upholding the will of the people." But to many, those words now ring hollow, twisted beyond recognition. Because if the will of the people is being used to justify law breaking, what then remains of the rule of law? And if a man can face the highest court in the land, lose and still cling to power, what future awaits this country? The machinery of government is grinding to a halt. The civil service is paralysed. Legislation has stalled. And with MI5 now involved, whispers have begun of deeper rot, of private communications between Starmer's team and foreign legal consultants, of encrypted channels used to conceal key strategy sessions, of efforts to preempt court decisions by targeting individual judges through leaks. And the clock is ticking, and Britain is now on the edge of a political abyss so deep, so unthinkable, that even veteran commentators have fallen silent. The phrase being whispered now across government buildings, media studios, even military channels, isn't just crisis, it's constitutional collapse. Because the revelations from the MI5 leak, especially the D-Notice override file, have changed everything. For the first time in living memory, this country faces the live possibility that an election may be suspended, not by war, not by terror, but by the hands of its own leadership. And at the centre of this slow-burning coup stands one man, Keir Starmer, a former lawyer turned crusader, now accused of crossing the line from ambition to authoritarianism. The decrypted D-Notice override file, described by sources as chilling in detail, outlined contingency protocols in the event of a complete breakdown in electoral order. But here's the problem. No such breakdown has occurred yet. The people are not rioting. The institutions are holding. So why would such a document even exist? More terrifying still, analysts have confirmed that the file was last edited just 48 hours before the Supreme Court ruling. That means someone knew. Someone was preparing for collapse, not to prevent it, but to control it. The document contained references to emergency messaging protocols, alternate parliamentary locations, and perhaps most disturbing, a draft directive authorising the use of police resources to secure civil administrative continuity. In plain terms, arming the state to silence dissent under the guise of order. Insiders now believe that certain factions within Starmer's camp feared the ruling weeks in advance, and instead of seeking to comply, they drew up counter-control plans. That alone would be scandalous, but the latest discovery has pushed the nation into unprecedented territory. Late last night, MI5 confirmed the presence of foreign fingerprints within the digital signature of the file. The origin? Brussels. Not the EU Parliament itself, but a high-level private legal advisory group based in Belgium with known ties to supranational lobbying interests. If verified, this would mean that British electoral sovereignty, already fragile post-Brexit, may have been undermined in secret through shadow channels of foreign influence. This isn't conspiracy, this is classified intelligence now being reviewed by the highest levels of the Crown, the Cabinet, and the Privy Council. This morning, the King has reportedly summoned an extraordinary emergency session of the Privy Council, a move not taken since the Suez crisis. The location, Windsor Castle. The agenda, constitutional preservation. We are now witnessing the monarch subtly but unmistakably exercising his soft power, not to rule but to protect the rule itself. As one royal aide put it, the Crown will not govern, but nor will it watch silently as governance dies. Parliament, meanwhile, is paralysed. MPs arrived at Westminster today to find new security protocols in place. Multiple high-ranking Labour MPs have gone off the grid, their staff offering only vague explanations. The Speaker of the House has cancelled 2 scheduled votes, citing procedural integrity concerns. It is no longer clear who holds executive authority. Civil service briefings are reportedly being withheld until clarity is restored. Britain, the mother of parliaments, has become a state in limbo, and yet Starmer remains in hiding. No press, no speeches, only veiled briefings from aides who refuse to confirm his whereabouts. But even in silence, the damage is mounting. Public confidence has cratered. Overnight polling by The Guardian and YouGov shows 78% of voters now believe the nation is experiencing a leadership vacuum. 1 in 4 say they no longer trust any party to act constitutionally. Financial markets have begun to wobble. The pound dropped 1.6% against the dollar within hours of the leaked MI5 report. Investment firms are warning clients of sovereign instability risk. And in the backrooms of power, conversations once whispered are now being spoken aloud. A caretaker government, a military advisory role, a royal constitutional address, all phrases that would have sounded like fiction days ago. But not anymore. One Conservative MP speaking anonymously said, "This isn't about party anymore, it's about the nation. Starmer has to be removed before the constitution is rewritten by stealth." Even within Labour, a mutiny is underway. A group of 29 backbenchers have broken ranks, publishing an open letter to the King himself, yes, to the monarch, pleading for constitutional intervention. The letter, now circulating virally, reads, "We cannot stand by while the fabric of our democracy is shredded in our name." But Starmer's most dangerous weapon now may be time. Every hour he avoids public accountability is an hour of uncertainty. The clock is ticking, and Britain is now on the edge of a political abyss so deep, so unthinkable, that even veteran commentators have fallen silent. The phrase being whispered now across government buildings, media studios, even military channels, isn't just crisis, it's constitutional collapse. Because the revelations from the MI5 leak, especially the D-Notice override file, have changed everything. For the first time in living memory, this country faces the live possibility that an election may be suspended, not by war, not by terror, but by the hands of its own leadership. And at the centre of this slow-burning coup stands one man, Keir Starmer, a former lawyer turned crusader, now accused of crossing the line from ambition to authoritarianism. The decrypted D-Notice override file, described by sources as chilling in detail, outlined contingency protocols in the event of a complete breakdown in electoral order. But here's the problem. No such breakdown has occurred yet. The people are not rioting. The institutions are holding. So why would such a document even exist? More terrifying still, analysts have confirmed that the file was last edited just 48 hours before the Supreme Court ruling.